Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I'm your host, John the Bod, aka the Bod Father, and as always, I'm bringing you guys awesome interviews. And today it is an honor and privilege to have Dean on the show this evening. He has played in many bands that's been on my show, metal bands, horror punk bands, and now he's doing his own debut album called Life Lessons. So we're going to be talking to Dean about that. So Dean, man, how's it going? And glad to have you on the show.
Good. Yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Everything's been a little crazy, doing a lot of stuff this year. Did a lot of stuff so far this year and looking to do even more,
So let's get right into talking about Life Lessons. What's impressed you the most about making the debut album? What's caught your eye about it, if anything, man?
The thing that actually brought it to fruition was I was on my first Darrow Chemical Company tour. We did Return of the Touring Dead, I believe it was called, and we were doing, DIY. The band did a Kickstarter, or not a Kickstarter, Indiegogo to buy a van and all that stuff and go on tour. So we did all that, raised $15,000. And, it was a life accomplishment for me. And basically, right when I got to California, my father passed away, and it destroyed me. Oh no! I stayed on the tour. My father had colon cancer, and I made my guitar picks blue so that way when I gave them out to people, I was only a tech at that point for Darrow. I wasn't even playing guitar, but I made these picks blue so that way I could talk to my dad, and I really thought if I spread this positive energy, maybe it would help in some way, whatever. And the picks, they had a number 13 on them, and August 13th, 2013, my father passed away, pretty much right when we got to Cali, and I was devastated. So I wrote this song called Dust to Dust. And that really was the main pushing force that got me to finish the rest of the songs for obvious reasons. You losing a family member, it becomes a mission, so to speak.
Well, sure. Condolences, man. I didn't know your dad had passed away or anything, or I would have said something, prior to that. So condolences.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been rough, but it's also the driving force. My dad bought me my first guitar on my 13th birthday. And I still play that guitar live. In fact, I even just reposted a picture of it. There's times when I've played that guitar with Darrow Chemical Company, and one time playing Knowledge, which was our Op Ivy cover. At the very end, I was punching the guitar and I broke the neck right off the body.
Is that the one that's got the cat on it?
Yeah, Felix.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
That show that happened, funny enough, I was playing in Darrow Chemical Company. And it was the Double Trouble tour with Black Cat Attack and the Independents, both of who I wound up playing in on later dates.
Crazy how things just comes, everything comes right around in circles.
Yeah. And so on that same tour, too, to bring him back a happy about, that's when Darrow Chemical Company first met Black Cat Attack. And we met Dave from, Sum 41, right, and Brian and Val and Ari. And we met them in Jackson, Tennessee. We played the Emporium, and with our good friends at Tattoo Station down there in Jackson. They're awesome, by the way. If anyone's ever in Jackson, go to the Tattoo Emporium. They do tattoos for us. In fact, my minor logo was designed by the owner of the shop and everything. So, but yeah, we met them there, and then we wound up playing 3 or 4 shows with them that tour. So that kind of built up the friendship, including the last night of the tour too. Right after my father passed, Loki, the guitar player of Darrow Chemical Company, his brother got into this vicious car accident, and he had to leave the tour. And so I filled in on guitar, and that was pretty much my start into this horror punk thing. I was a guitar tech who, in an emergency, I learned 12 songs in 24 hours and played the last 13 shows of that tour on lead guitar. And on the last night of the tour, Loki actually met us down in Baltimore. And the only time that will probably ever happen, Darrow Chemical Company had 3 guitar players. That was me, Doug, and Loki all played.
I think this is a cool thing. You produced this debut album from you. Do you like the producer route, man? And I know it gives you more time and more freedom, but let's talk about that a little bit.
No. When it's all you, man, I'm not gonna lie. So I hated being in control of all of that, because if it sucks, then you suck.
Yeah.
So I did the album and I recorded it in a month. The thing that actually got me to record the physical album itself was in October, this past October of 2016, I got the gig being the touring bass player for Children of October, who you interviewed right before the tour. And we listened to it actually when we were on the road. It was pretty cool.
Good deal. Thanks, man.
Yeah, I really liked the interview. And so I thought it was really funny that instead of Rico saying I was in the Independents, he said I was in the Misfits. I fucking laughed my ass off because I totally wasn't in the Misfits. But yeah, so like I was going to go on the road with them and play bass, and I was like, man, I've been in the Independents. I was their touring bass player. I was in Black Cat Attack for like these shows so Dave could rejoin Sum 41, and then like I was in Darrow Chemical Company. I was in Darkness Descends, and I teched for Graves and did all this stuff. And I was just like, man, it's about time that I show the world what I got. And pretty much since my dad passed and like a little bit before that, I hit a downward spiral, like in my personal life, a bunch of things happened. I got divorced or separated with my wife. And like, I went through these really crappy girlfriends, and then like I was constantly on the move. So like, that's what life lessons is. Life lessons are pretty much my life lessons since 2013, like everything that I've learned, all I've gone through. And I don't know how the horror punk community is going to take it, because it's not blood, guts, gore, werewolves, vampires, none of that. It's about the real scary stuff, losing your family, losing loved ones. I lost a couple of loved ones that year. Going through being homeless for a little while, or hitting the road and just not knowing who you are. Like, that's what it really is, like that's what my life lessons were. And, so I like I said, I don't know how it's going to be taken in that community. I hope it's going to be well received from what I've shown to some people. But yeah, it was really hard to make sure I got that message across. And like I said, or what you were saying about the producer role, I did this whole thing in such a short period of time. And then I released like a beta, so to speak. And I gave it out to like 100 people on Facebook. And I took everything that these people had to say. And some of it was like heartbreaking, like, yeah. In fact, I joke about it now, but my singer from Darkness Descends, Angry Jay, he was like, dude, don't release this. And it caused like a little tiff between me and him. I like didn't speak to him for like 3 weeks. And he told me, he's like, listen, he's like, I came to you like a brother would, not like a friend would. He's like, I told you what you needed to hear, so that way you busted your ass and worked on it. And I was like, I did. I didn't sleep for 2 weeks after that phone call with him. It broke my heart. So when you're the producer also, there's no one else to blame but yourself, when you do it all. And it was me and my drummer, Zaki Ali from Stalactite Studios and Darkness Descends. And he played drums on the album too. It's like, it was just the two of us. So like, there was no one else to blame if it didn't sound exactly how I wanted it to sound, or how anyone thought it should.
Well, yeah. And you hear something like that, man. I mean, you're going to be your own worst critic. You're going to be like, well, that don't sound right. Well, this don't sound right. And then pretty much you're just going to be eating yourself alive doing it.
Yeah. And that like, and when you work on something so much, you do, at least with me, I guess there were certain things that I was like, maybe someone won't hear that, like there was a couple of those moments. And then like after my feedback, I was like, yeah, they pretty much heard everything I didn't want them to hear. So yeah, so I went in and I re-recorded guitars. I was going to do these shows in March. I was going to have some guitar players come down from Canada, and I was going to do like 6 shows and release the album back in March. But since they're Canadian, there was a problem with scheduling, and I wound up canceling the shows. And instead I went back in the studio with Zach, and I was like, listen, if that's the case, if they're having all these troubles, I'm going to take this as a sign. I'm going to hit the studio. And I did. And then I recorded, and I put 7-string on top of everything when it was initially just 6-string, and with like a little Hughes and Kettner head. And then I re-recorded, and I run an A-B set. I have a huge guitar rig, and I run an ABC setup. So I had 3 guitar heads and 3 cabinets going at once. And I re-recorded the whole album and added like the 3 amps on top with the 7-string. So it completely changed the guitar sound. And then we went in and we redialed the drums and the bass as per advice from my buddy Loki from Graves.
You mentioned this album's about life lessons of your own, but are there any songs off this album, Dean, that stand out more to you than any on it, man?
There's two of them. There's two that stick out the most. One is The Miner, and The Miner, that came from a little bit before 2013. I'm going to say like late 2012-ish is when I wrote that song. Maybe 2013 or like early 2013. That was actually, I mentioned Angry Jay before. There was a period of time when I left Darkness Descends for a while, which was my metal band that I had for a long time. And The Miner, the words in The Miner are like, at least the first part of it, like the first verse, those words are straight to Angry Jay. They are direct to him, and he knows it. And the first two lines are, I broke my back for you, and then I wrote this line for you. And then I was there to dig you out. As the walls cave in, just shout. The miner runs this town. And that was basically me, you know, like telling Darkness Descends I was pissed off at him. That, you know, and then Angry Jay and I wound up working on that song and developing it. And like I told him that story, and he really liked it. And, you know, he helped me finish that song, oddly enough. And then the other song is Punk Night's Finale. The first part of the song, musically, I wrote it probably about 5 years ago. And the acoustic outro I can tell you the exact day that I wrote it. I wrote it on the day that Dale Earnhardt died in the Daytona 500. I was watching that, and I watched him die in the car wreck. And I was down the shore, and I went right into my bedroom with my second guitar, and I wrote that part. And I never released it in all these bands that I've ever been doing. That, like, some of the, like, that part just never got put in. We never did anything with it. And I loved it so much. So, you know, putting those two together was kind of like a nice culmination. I've had those two like in my book forever. And then the lyrics, a lot of the lyrics for Punk Nights too is, again, it was like my reaction to Angry Jay telling me not to release the album. So like he's my best friend, you know, like we are straight up brothers. And you know, it really helped drive to push all that and get it together. It was pretty cool, actually. You know, when you come to think about it.
It's crazy. I'm a NASCAR fan. I do not care to admit that at all. I do not care. I'm a dirt track fan too. But when watching that race, I even watched it, man. It seemed just like a regular NASCAR wreck. It didn't seem out of the ordinary.
It seemed like a less violent wreck.
Yeah.
You know, like it was the least violent wrecks that I've ever seen, to be honest. And that's what made it so dangerous. And
it was so creepy and so eerie after that when you watch that. It's like, what the fuck? You know? It's like, really, man? That took out Earnhardt. You just never know.
Oh, man. And you know what? And you know what's crazy? There was a period of time that summer. I always used to play the Daytona video game. And, dude, I'm convinced. I'm absolutely convinced. I was playing the Daytona 500 game at the arcade down the shore, and it was just before that. And this guy sat next to me, and I could have sworn, I was like, wow, this guy looks a lot like Dale Earnhardt. And I always sat in car number 3, and like I beat the guy in the race, right? And it's a video game,
right?
And then the guy like taps me on the shoulder and goes, "Good driving, kid." And I was like, man, was that Dale Earnhardt? Like, what the? Like, I didn't know, right? And I ran out to the boardwalk. I swear to God, I ran out to the boardwalk, and I was like, "Where'd he go?
Gone.
He's gone."
Yeah.
And that was it. And like, I never knew if it was him or not, but it was like, it was close enough for me, you know.
Well, sure.
But the dude was an idol.
Yeah.
And a hero. And then he just died right in front of my face, you know. I stopped with NASCAR after that. That was enough.
And now you have little E. Earnhardt Jr. is retiring after this year. I mean, NASCAR world's being flipped upside down with all these big names retiring, and there's writing on the wall, folks. Something's not right. So
you know what, man? I felt really bad for Junior because obviously he won that race because his father was blocking for him, and that's what caused the accident. And to be honest, man, I don't know that you could ever push yourself that hard, like hard enough to win, because that's such an endurance sport. That's such a mind game sport. If my father died when I was winning my first Daytona 500, I'd probably never push the pedal all the way to the floor ever again.
Oh, sure.
You know, like,
sure.
And so I've always felt for him in that regard, you know, and anytime I watch NASCAR after that, I always like wish that he did better. And when he didn't, I was just like, I give him a pass, you know, like I still rooted for him and whatever, but I can only imagine what it's like for that.
I think I would have walked away. I think I would have retired. I'd be like, you know what? I'm done.
Well, for a minute, he was trying to live the legacy, I'm sure, and like try and keep up with it. But you know what, man? He did better than most. even still,
Sure.
you know, like if you think about the thousands of drivers that there have been, and there's only been a handful of, you know, household names, he still built up the brand, and he still did what he had to do, and he's still going to live a very fruitful life because of it, you know. So
how much growth musically have you seen yourself go through up to the release of this debut solo album, man?
man, I've pushed myself pretty hard. I've always been pretty good rhythmically. And in the past few years, for like the past 5 years, I was a teacher at the School of Rock in Waldwick because of management issues. You know, me and a few other teachers got let go, like September of last year, or whatever. But I even continued teaching after that. Teaching is actually what really pushes me the most. You know, going to a studio, I've always been used to recording to a click track. So like there's nothing that I really had to overcome with that. Like I've always had my own recording set up, and I've always done that. So I've always been tight in that regard. But it's really teaching that pushes me, whether it's to put like keeping me on the basics or like pushing me because I still have to be better than my students, you know, like,
Right.
so, but like the studio wise is where I really grew with this album, I think, in the things that I learned, you know, because the album's like based off of punk rock and rock. So like, it's not all that challenging physically or mentally as far as scales and ridiculous timings, you know. But it was really the studio stuff. It was like sitting down and learning what frequencies you don't want to hear and stuff like that. And like, there's a whole nother aspect to it in that regard. That's where I think I learned the most.
How much local support do you hope this album gets via your fans that you make, the venues, of course, and even get it on airplay like on my show and shows like this, and actual radio play? What do you hope, man, that support you get from this?
Obviously, I hope for the best, you know. I'm trying to, you know, I'm hoping it's well received. I don't know whether it's going to be or not, but I'm reaching out there. I'm trying. I have a couple of places that I'm trying to get, you know, the radio play and stuff like that, but I'm also DIY. So like, you know, I don't have like the Led Zeppelin way of showing up to the DJ with, you know, a pound of pot and a kilo of Coke and being like, yo, play my record. I don't have that. And, you know, even if I could put myself in that situation, I don't have money like that. You know, like
come in with a 24 case of Pepsi. Go, I'll give you 24 case of Pepsi, you know?
Yeah, you know what I mean? I'll give you a bottle of Jack, you know, and roll you a joint or something. But like anything more than that, I would if I could, you know.
Yeah.
But I hope it goes far. I'm not just doing an album either. Like for me, it's more than just the album. I'm trying to build a brand. As I stated earlier, you know, Dean has been in all these bands. I'm not trying to talk about myself in the third person here. I'm talking about like the character that I've built on from playing shows. Because yes, my name is Christopher Dean, but I go by Dean, you know, professionally. And so I decided I'm trying to build a brand based upon that. That's where the minor comes in. I'm doing skateboards. I'm doing T-shirts. I'm doing bandanas that cover your face and like only have the lower half of the minor. I know that no one else can see, but you can see me. I have the minor tattooed on me.
I see that. Yeah.
Yeah. This was done by the same guy who did the artwork itself. And it looks so good with the shading and everything. It's retarded. That's Jeff Stevens down at the tattoo station. And like, I hope the brand is accepted. I hope that, you know, I'm trying to build something cool that people will like. Like that's, you know, I got all the ideas here. I think everyone should like it. You know, there's some cool artwork. There's some cool theories. There's some cool stuff that goes behind it. Once I can get the band together and bring it to the live aspect, which doing all these other bands makes that hard to get it all together. And I also, like, some of the musicians I've been seeking out are not in New Jersey. So, like, I'm trying to seek out the right people, not just people who are here. So everyone should know that when this does go live, it's going to be a great show. I'm going to make sure that I choose the right musicians to play it and everything like that. So, like, it's going to be a guaranteed good time once it gets live. But like I said, there's a whole brand here that I'm trying to do.
Speaking of once it goes live with this band, what can fans expect at a show from you once this does go out on the road and start to play shows with this, Dean?
Loud. Yeah. You can definitely expect it to be loud. I will definitely be bringing, you know, a large guitar rig, even if it's just in a basement, you know, and energetic. Anyone who's ever seen me recently in Michale Graves, and I did a tour with him playing bass where I learned 22, 23 songs in 3 days and then played a bunch of sold out shows with him in Canada. And, like anyone who's seen me with that or a Black Cat Attack or anything, everyone will tell you I'm very energetic. And this is going to be my heart on the table. So you're going to see, like, if you enjoy things like guitar spins and jumping around and running in the crowd and stuff like that, which I do, I can only assume that it's going to be the craziest, best show possible. I'm also trying to figure out, because I use a wireless because I run around so much. I don't want to look like a tool bag and like Britney Spears and like have like this wireless microphone, but I'm going to have to, I can't have a microphone that I stay stuck at. That doesn't even exist to me. Like I don't try to headbang a lot. I don't try to run around all different sides of the stage. I don't think ahead of time, oh my God, when the circle pit breaks out, I'm totally going to jump in. No, that shit just happens. I don't know why or how, it just does. When the song starts and I feel it and it's going, I just go nuts. So the fact that it's my heart on the platter and I, like I said, I've done this in everyone else's bands. I didn't write any Darrow Chemical Company songs or Black Cat Attack songs or even independent songs. And especially I didn't write any Misfits tunes, even though I played with Michael. And I still had that energy, those feelings, those emotions. So it's going to be the best of what I have to offer, for sure.
How was working with Plan 9 Guitars? I know that they...
Plan 916.
Yeah, my bad. Plan 916. How was working with those guys?
Well, it was one guy, Matt McLean. Currently, I don't know where he is. I'm not, it's... I haven't heard from him in a while. I hope he's okay or whatever. Like last I spoke with him, his mom was really sick, and then he kind of just went MIA. I started working with him when I was on the Independence tour. What was that, in 2015? And he picked me up at my hotel in Sacramento, and he brought me to his house, and then he gave me 3 pickups, and I threw them in one of my guitars when I got home, and 2 of my guitars when I got home, and it just sounded so good. And every aspect of working and developing, and that whole thing was, again, with the brand, I was trying to develop my own signature series pickup, and hopefully I'll be able to get back in touch with them and continue all of that, because I do have all the specs that I want for my pickup in a couple of my guitars. That dude just threw me enough pickups for like 12 guitars as he was designing stuff, and we talk and converse about all these different things. He would just like make another round of pickups and ship them out, make another round of pickups, ship them out. And like he did that for all kinds of stuff for me, even down to my bass. And then like I said, something happened and his mom got sick, and I haven't heard from him in a while. So I'm hoping to try and get back in touch with him and continue that. It was a great experience. It really is,
Yeah, I hope they're both okay. I mean, hate to see somebody go MIA like that and not hear nothing from them. That kind of gets you wigged out a little bit,
Yeah, and like Matt and I we were really close for a long time, and then I guess, like I said, his mom got sick, and then he hasn't been on Instagram or Facebook or anything. He even deleted his Facebook account. So like,
wow.
But when he comes back around on the grid, sometimes people just need time to get things together. When he comes back on the grid, I'm gonna continue on with that. Because that's a lifelong dream. It's an accomplishment. My first like feeling of like feeling accomplished in music was getting guitar picks with my name on it. I know it might sound stupid to some people, but like when you're 13 years old sitting in your bedroom playing live albums from like Marilyn Manson and stuff, and then like years later you go to shows and and you catch picks with other guitar players' names on it and you treasure those things, and then all those years later you have your own, and when you give them to people, their eyes light up, or you throw them out and people catch them and their eyes light up and they're so happy. Like it's that felt like an accomplishment. And so the next thing after that, was working on guitar pickups, because I'm such a gearhead that's makes so much sense for me. And so like that was another level of really feeling accomplished.
Do you like the digital era of recording albums and that we're in right now, to get your music out there a lot quicker? Or would you prefer to just be in a studio? What's your take on this?
All right. So my first Darkness Descends album that we released on January 13th, 2013, we did it at Barbershop Studios in Lake Hopatcong, New Jersey with Steve Boyer and Jason Corsero. And oddly enough, and this is pretty relevant. Those two guys worked on the Soundgarden album that had Black Hole Sun on it, for Christ's sakes.
Holy crap.
So we were like, they also did Clutch, Pure Rock Fury, and Elephant Riders. So like I did that route, and we were going to put the album on tape when we were at that studio. There was one of the most beautiful studios I've ever even been in, let alone I got to record there with two Grammy award-winning producers. But tape is so expensive, man. I'm sure, like, I know from the bands that I've listened to how good it can sound, you know, if you do all the right stuff. And another thing, on that first album, I used preamps that were like, my guitar went through preamps that used to be owned by Jimi Hendrix. They were from Electric Ladyland Studios, and like Jimi Hendrix owned these things and used them on his albums, and my guitar went through that. And it doesn't sound as good as this album. So like, you know, like, not gonna lie, you know, like the first Darkness Descends album was also a very big learning experience. And, you know, I think that I know that outboard gear and everything makes albums sound like better, so to speak, but it's at what cost? Because it costs you like 10 times more to get something that's a little bit better. I mean, and it might be, maybe it's worth it. You know, at my budget, if that was the case, if that was the only means of recording this album, it wouldn't have happened. You know, it maybe would have been recorded on a cassette tape in a Yamaha 8-track player like I was 15, and then it would sound like shit. So this new era of recording, it really does make it more accessible, and it cuts out like the fact of, you know, like maybe this wouldn't have been recorded if that was the case, you know. So it lets a lot more music out there, and I think it's pretty cool. You know, I think it's great in this time that we live in, on how just amazing computing power is, you know.
What does Dean bring to the table for music that's not out there as of right now?
Well, for starters, man, like any of the bands that I've been in or that are aforementioned, I have elements of that I brought to this album, and then more. There's things that I did on this album that I truly am behind, and like I feel and love, that wouldn't have necessarily been done in any of the bands that I've been in. I bring pure emotion. You know, that's what I did. I try and use really cool chords, and I try and bring a nice vibe, and I try and show you even musically, even though this is like based around punk, there's not just power chords going on. I've never felt that way. Being a guitar player most of my life, over 20 years, you know, I learned how to speak through my instrument. So when you hear a chord in a song, listen closely, because that chord is going to tell you all the emotion that I was feeling when I wrote that, which you don't get out of some songs. You know, like you get an underlying chord progression, whatever, but I pay such close attention to what I use. And then on top of that, I sang, and the singing I haven't done before. So like that, I really racked my brain over it. And I've improved even since recording the album, just because like since I did the vocals, then I went on tour with Graves, and I did 2 tours with Children of October. And like, there's so much more singing that got done on my behalf that I'm always going to look to be better, and look to progress, and look to bring the most energy and the most feeling that I possibly can. You know, you're always going to get pure emotion and just rock out of me. Always. You're always going to get that. And you're going to be, you know, like, and I want to have a good time. So
now you're going to be working on other things too, other than the album, putting it out there and things, but let's talk about that before we end this.
All right. So this year I have, out of all these bands that I've been in, I haven't recorded on any albums. I was in Darrow Chemical Company for 2 years, and like on and off, because I was a fill-in at once, and then I got brought in as another fill-in. So I came in like right around, like right before and right after recording. So I wasn't on any of their recordings. I didn't do anything with Black Cat Attack at that time. And same thing with Independence and Graves and stuff. So like Children of October, being with them, I'm really, really, really happy that things are going so good, because, you know, we had a great vibe going on. And so we did an album the digital way, going back to the digital era. Those guys live in Pittsburgh, and I live in Bergen County, New Jersey, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I live in Bergen County, New Jersey. We live 7 hours away from each other. So I went to a studio here, the same one I went to and did my album at, Stalactite, and recorded my bass tracks and then emailed them. And then, so we have that album coming out. There's no date yet. It's called It's Not Jazz. It's going to be a 5-song EP. That's pretty awesome. I'm really, really excited for it though, because, like I said, with all these bands I've worked with, I haven't gotten a chance to be on any of their albums. So this is going to be the first one out of anyone who's seen me in the past, like 3, 4, 5 years, besides Darkness Descends. This is really going to be the first thing that you're going to get to hear me on besides my solo album.
What about Children of October? Are you guys going to be recording anything soon?
Well, like I said, we just did that EP, and we don't know when we're releasing it, but we are doing a tour to support it in October.
Okay.
Go figure. Till October, we're gonna be touring that month, and it will definitely be released by then. You'll definitely be able to buy it at our shows, and there's also childrenofoctober.bandcamp.com. That's where you can buy that stuff. So when we do release it, it will be available there. I started working with this girl, Alex. And I just did a music video with her playing bass for the song Taking Over. And it's such a good song. This girl has such a great voice. I started working with her because I did a solo on a hip-hop song earlier this year, or late last year, one of the others. I don't know. And so we started collaborating with this hip-hop song, and then I did this music video. And at first I just stood in for the video. I didn't even play bass on the track. But that turned into her asking me to play bass for her live. And I said, yeah, I'll totally play bass for you live. But if that's the case, I want to record bass on the rest of the EP. And she was like, deal. So I'm going to be doing that too. And hopefully, Darkness Descends is going to release a few more songs later on this year as well. So that's going to be like 4 different albums this year that I'm going to be hopefully releasing.
Life Lessons, is this already out right now, or when is this going to be out to the public for everybody to grab?
Friday the 13th of 2017 in October.
Nice.
So all of my Darkness Descends albums, we released them on Friday the 13th because there's a stigma about 13. Once again, I know that everyone else can't see it, but you can. I even have a 13 on my hand.
I see it.
And it's on an angle. Also got that done at the tattoo station. It's on an angle, so that way when I put on my first guitar, the 13 is upright. I just always had this thing about the number 13. I'm not like phobic about it, or I don't aim for it. It's just that I just paid attention, and it was just always there. So it was better, for me I want to make sure I promote this album and build a little bit of a buzz and let everybody know that out of this small focus group of people that, in the world that have heard this, that I did so much more to it and made it so much better. And so I'm going to release that Friday the 13th in October. And if I'm in the middle of a tour or whatever, I don't know what my schedule is yet, you're not going to be able to buy it before then. You're going to have to wait. So if I go to Delaware and then North Carolina, but the 13th is until I'm in Florida, you're not going to be able to buy it in Delaware or North Carolina. It's only going to be after that. And I'm just going to be, I'm really proud of it. So I'm really excited to release it then.
This is a pretty cool album. I got to preview it already, and this is pretty cool. Gone with the Wind is badass. Lean in, lean toward, lean with. Good stuff. The one you mentioned, like bleeding her for more. Yeah, that's a badass song, dude. Blast from the Past.
That's all really the heaviness of that one really came out once I of the intro. Once I put the 7-string on it, it really brought out some stuff.
And I like Dust to Dust. I know you said that was for your father, but I love how it just ends. You expect something to go on and it just stops. It's just great. It's good stuff.
I was really proud of that one. Some of these songs, all right, so all of these songs on this whole album were written on my acoustic. Mm-hmm. I bring at least one guitar with me everywhere, and on a lot of those Darrow tours is when I in the van and on the beach and stuff like that, when you have nothing to do or day off, I always play. So I wrote everything on an acoustic, and that was actually part of the challenge, was taking everything that was a strict acoustic song with these vibrant chords and then bringing it punk rock / electric. That was a hell of a challenge on some songs. And Dust to Dust was definitely one of those songs that, to make it electric, I was happy with it, but I still wanted everyone to hear it in its original form. So on the outro, I had this girl, Michale, do some background vocals on it, and everyone gets to hear exactly how I did intend the song, campfire style. And I tried to keep some of those elements throughout a few of the songs, like definitely wanted that emotion to be brought there.
Folks, when this comes out Friday the 13th in October, I suggest you guys pick it up. Like I've always said, I don't sugarcoat nothing on this show. If it's good enough, I'll tell you. If it's not, I'll still tell you. Regardless, that's what you guys are on the show for. You want my truthfulness, and I will tell you that. And as always, man, I support you guys 1,000%. So how can folks stay in touch with you, buy this album when it comes out, your tour dates? How can you do that, good sir?
Every social networking thing that there is, whether it's live.me or Snapchat or YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everything is Dean, the number 8, and then the word string. I know that I've spoke about 6 and 7 string this whole time, but I play 8-string guitars, and hell, that name was available on all social networking. So I took Dean 8-string on all of them. And if you follow me on any of those, I'm really active on Instagram, and from there I post to Facebook and Twitter. But I have artist pages on Facebook. I even have Reverb Nation, all that stuff. Basically, man, if there's a social networking thing and it's available in America, I will be on it, and you can find out there. It's very simple, Dean 8-string. And if you forget it and you go to one of my shows and you get one of my pics, it says dean8string@gmail.com on there. If you want to, you can't find something and you want to get in touch with me, email me. I will totally get back to you. Message me on Facebook. I like to talk to everybody. You can ask so many of my fans, from all over. I constantly talk to people all the time. I like to engage. I like to, interact with people. That's why I do this. I do this so that way I can bring my feeling and my emotion to you, and feel yours and give it back and spread positivity and have a good time, because that's why we're in this music thing, is to forget about the shit that sucks and go have a good time for a little while, sometimes an hour, sometimes more,
Before I let you go, would you care to do a promo for the show, Dean?
Sure. What do you want me to say? This is Dean, and you are listening to BODS Mayhem Hour, and this show fucking rocks.
Everybody stick around. We got some great music coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour and Uber City Radio. Thanks, Dean.
Yes, thank you very much, man. I had a great time.